Nicole's debit card got rejected for a $6 coffee right in front of a client. The barista pushed the cup aside like it was radioactive. The guy she was supposed to impress checked his phone and said he had another call, which was a lie, and walked out. Nicole stood there with a red face and a bank app that showed $14 and some cents. She spent the next hour doom scrolling freelance job boards in her tiny Austin apartment, pretending the rejected payment was just a glitch and not a symptom. Then she saw it. Liquidation auction tomorrow. Entire crypto startup office in East Austin. Filing cabinets $10 each. Must pick up. She did the math. If she could get a decent cabinet, she could stop losing contracts because every project file on her old laptop took 3 minutes just to open. Next day, she showed up to the stale-smelling office with a borrowed pickup and a printed bidder number. The place was already half-gutted. Rolling chairs by the dozen. Monitors stacked like thin televisions. In one corner, 3 metal filing cabinets stood against the wall, tape on the drawers, a paper sign saying tech records. Nobody seemed interested. Everyone fought over the standing desks. Nicole checked the top drawer of the gray cabinet. Stuck halfway, then gave way with a squeal. Inside one folder and behind it a neat stack of black external hard drives held together with a zip tie. Her heart jumped a little. Extra storage was money in her pocket. She raised her hand for the cabinet, won it for $12, then heard the auctioneer announce something that made several heads turn at once. He said the company had shut down under investigation, and that whatever was left inside the furniture was now sold as is. Driving the cabinet across town was the first obstacle. The thing weighed like a small car. The pickup's tailgate cable was frayed, and every bump on I-35 made the cabinet slam forward against the cab. At one stoplight, a guy in a Tesla honked and yelled that her load looked illegal. She just tightened the ratchet strap and pretended she knew what she was doing. Her building had no elevator. Second floor, narrow stairs, faded carpet with mysterious dark stains. The neighbor from 2A leaned on the rail smoking while she wrestled the cabinet up one step at a time. He asked what kind of treasure she thought she had in there. The way he said treasure sounded like trash. By the fourth step her arms shook so much she had to sit on the landing and breathe. When she finally dragged the cabinet into her living room, it gouged a line in the laminate. That meant losing her deposit someday. But future Nicole could argue with the landlord. Present Nicole attacked the drawers with a pair of scissors to cut the tape. Top 1. Empty except pour the single folder with boring HR forms. Second one. Also empty. For a second she thought she had hauled a metal corpse for nothing. Then the third drawer opened with resistance like it had grown roots. Inside lay the stack of hard drives she had seen before plus a handful of USB sticks tossed beside them. Some of the drives had little labels. Backup Node 1. Cold storage. The labels meant nothing to her yet, but the word storage had its own gravity. Her laptop only had 2 free ports and one of them worked when it wanted. She pushed aside laundry on the dining table, set the drives down, and reached for the first cable. At that exact moment the power in the building flickered and went out. Someone in the hallway swore in Spanish. The router died with a soft click and Nicole sat in the half-dark, surrounded by dead plastic rectangles and the smell of dust. With the sensation de que la suerte estaba burlando de ella. The power came back an hour later along with the late afternoon heat that always seemed to settle over Austin like a blanket. Nicole booted her laptop, slid the first hard drive cable into place, and waited for the gentle vibration in the case. Nothing. She tilted it, pressed her ear to the casing, then tried another USB port. Now a faint mechanical buzz started and the screen popped up a window asking to scan and repair. She ignored repair and opened the drive. Log files, database dumps, folders with names like node backups and cold wallets. Inside one folder, a README file explained step by step how to reconstruct something called a multisig vault. She read slowly, lips moving without sound. It described 3 keys stored on separate devices. Any 2 could approve a Bitcoin transaction. 1 key, according to the notes, lived on a hardware wallet that was not present. The other 2 existed as encrypted files on specific drives, both of which were now sitting right in front of her. Her fingers left oily smudges on the matte plastic as she swapped drives in and out. Second mini climax. She found a PDF named Liquidation Plan Draft. It mentioned the vault in passing as Treasury reserves. Over 800 Bitcoin at the time of writing. She looked up the current price on her phone and actually laughed once. A short, dry sound that did not feel like hers. Of course, there was a catch. There was always a catch. Some of the folders were locked behind passwords. The instructions referenced a passphrase that was supposed to be in a yellow envelope in a safe deposit box. That envelope was definitely not in her living room. Nicole leaned back, eyes burning from the blue light, and noticed a thin strip of masking tape on the bottom of one drive she had not flipped yet. On it, scribbled in hurry, 5 ordinary-looking words. It read more like a joke than a password, until she typed it in and the encrypted wallet file finally opened. Nicole was not stupid enough to type random commands into a vault holding life-changing money without help. She texted her friend Malik, the only person she knew who talked about blockchains the way other people talked about sports. He answered with a voice note asking why she was suddenly interested in multisig and if she had joined a cult. When she told him about the drives, he came over with a cheap pizza and a backpack full of gadgets. He checked the drive hashes, mumbled about how the startup had been sloppy, and insisted on disconnecting everything from the internet before doing anything. They spread hardware wallets, cables, and a spiral notebook across her coffee table. The room smelled like pepperoni and hot electronics. Malik guided her through importing the first key from the drive using a command line wallet. Watching lines of text run down the terminal felt unreal, like looking at X-rays of someone else's bones. The software confirmed. One key recovered. Then they located the second key file, imported it, and the vault balance flashed on screen. It was not 800 Bitcoin anymore. Some had moved out in earlier transactions. The remaining amount still translated into more money than everyone in her building would see in a decade together. Malik sat back and rubbed his face. "That is not a typo," he said to no one in particular. Then he started talking about legal risk, bankruptcy courts, clawbacks, forensic accountants. Every new word punched a hole in the rush she had just felt. Nicole opened her email and dug through the auction documents. There it was in plain text. Office contents included in sale where physically attached or contained. No exceptions listed for data. Still, a line on a PDF was not enough peace of mind when you were looking at a number that could ruin you if you mishandled it. By the time Malik left, the vault remained untouched. No coins moved. The keys sat backed up on an encrypted thumb drive locked in her freezer like some strange Ice Age relic. And Nicole had already scheduled a meeting with a lawyer she could barely afford. The law office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax prep shop. The lawyer, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a Longhorns mug, listened while Nicole laid everything out. The auction, the drives, the multisig, the balance. Nicole half expected her to laugh and show her the door. Instead, the lawyer asked for the startup's bankruptcy case number and started typing. Mini climax. The court records showed that the founders had disappeared 2 years earlier. Investors had fought each other in court, and a trustee had already liquidated what they could find. No one had mentioned any remaining Bitcoin. The lawyer explained in slow, careful words that under state law physical property sold at auction generally included what was inside unless specifically excluded. Data was a gray zone, but the trustee's final report listed digital assets as exhausted. Then came the ethical punch. The lawyer asked if Nicole wanted to try contacting former employees or investors before touching a single coin. Nicole spent a long night sending emails that might never be answered. One bounced. One auto-replied that the mailbox was full. One came back a week later from a former developer who said the vault had been their rainy day fund and that most people had written it off as lost when the founders vanished. He told her no one expected to see a cent. The lawyer's final recommendation was cautious. Document everything. Keep records of her attempts to find the rightful owners. Move only a portion at first. Pay taxes aggressively. If later someone had a legitimate claim, there would still be plenty to negotiate with. When the first test transaction went through, just a fraction of a coin, Nicole watched it confirm on the Blockchain Explorer like someone watching a heart monitor after surgery. Green check mark. funds received in a new wallet where she alone held the keys. Her hands shook so much she almost dropped her phone. That night she opened her banking app again. For the first time, the number she saw made the humiliation at the coffee shop feel like a story from another life. Yet she also knew that what she did next would mark her more deeply than any client logo. Nicole did not buy a sports car or vanish to an island. She rented a small ground floor space near East Cesar Chavez that used to be a laundromat. The floor was stained concrete, the walls rough, the ceiling full of ugly fluorescent fixtures. It was perfect. She hired 2 young designers she had met in online forums, kids still living with roommates and working off cracked tablets. She paid them fair salaries from day one and let them pick their own chairs instead of scavenging from the street. The studio slowly filled with plants, color swatches, and the hum of real deadlines. They designed branding for food trucks, a logo for a neighborhood clinic, album covers for indie bands who sometimes paid in cash and sometimes in tacos. Nicole kept the vault funds mostly in cold storage, moving out what she needed with a respect that bordered on superstition even though she did not believe in luck. The scholarships came later, after her first full year without overdraft fees. She created a small foundation through the same lawyer, with boring bylaws and a separate bank account. Each year 5 kids from public schools in Austin and nearby towns received money for laptops, drawing tablets, or tuition at community college design programs. At the first little ceremony, held in her cramped studio with plastic cups of grocery store punch, one of the students asked how she had started her business. She answered honestly that she had bought a filing cabinet nobody wanted, and inside había encontrado trabajo, riesgo y responsabilidad. She did not mention the exact number of coins. She did not talk about the nights de mito revisando leyes. She only said that sometimes value hides in places that look empty, and that the real change began when she decided not to run from it. The old cabinet still stood against the back wall of the studio, dented and scratched, with only paper inside now. Her staff joked about it being cursed. Nicole knew better. Every time she pulled a drawer to file another contract, she felt the weight of metal and zeros that had passed through her hands and into something visible. Clients kept coming. The scholarships list grew. The coffee shop where her card had once failed now displayed a new logo designed by her team. She paid for her drink with a metal card linked to an account that no longer scared her, took a slow breath, and walked back to the studio, where work and responsibility waited just like always, except now they finally felt like they belonged to her.